Today, we're going to talk about the toxic path of being authentic and how to avoid this trap.
Your someday starts today. It's time to explore and test the newest science, methods, and trends for creating a life you love with your host, Tanya, MFK. Welcome to My Designed Life.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to My Design Life, where we learn and test the latest science, tips, tools, and strategies for you to create your best life every day. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Tanya MFK and on the My Design Life Show podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Marie Figueres-Kreisinger, more easily known as Tanya MFK. And you are here to learn not only how to create your best life and business, but how to do it now. And I am so grateful that you are here. Now, my guest today is a great friend and has been here before when he shared the myth of common sense in his book, Uncommon Sense in Unusual Times. His journey is incredible, as he lost his first business the same way 99% of failed businesses do, and that's business growth leading to discourse, miscommunications, and discontent with your team. So realizing that speaking the same language, similar qualifications, common sense, and good intentions were not enough to make it work, and learning that many leaders and entrepreneurs were struggling with the same issue, he has spent the last 15 years cracking the code of why people think and behave differently and how to turn those differences into a successful business asset instead of a liability. So taking the complex topic of cultural intelligence and leadership and putting it into a practical and measurable method using neuroscience, personality, and intercultural models, he created the multi-award-winning ICF-accredited behavioral model Global DISC. His solutions have been used by Fortune 500 companies, national governments, and universities all over the world. And here today to teach us about the newest bug popping up in our relations is Csaba Toth. Welcome, Csaba.
Thank you so much for having me again. Where do we go from here? That intro.
We've covered it all. You can go home. It's been great.
Done.
No, I love having you here. I love our conversations. And as we said before we started recording, that it's almost the same thing where we just have the record button on. So it's always a pleasure talking to you because your mind is always kind of finding new things, looking at the world in a different way, which I think is why we have this unusual, unusual common sense, this type of thing that you approach. And so I'd love to dive in with kind of this newest topic that you've been exploring.
Okay, the difficulty is that I'm not sure how to pronounce it properly because I just had that idea, but it's a complicated word. So if you can help me.
I've been calling it Authentoxicity.
Exactly.
So Authentoxicity. And to me, it's like immediately clear, like, oh, I know someone who's toxically authentic. Yeah. And I wanted to just have you come in and shed some light on what that is really about, what you see in happening around us right now.
I think it's the most glorified version of fixed mindset. And when you say glorified, because so many people are proud of being authentic and genuine, and this is who I am, and I'm an individual and fantastic, but we don't live in isolation. The problem is that if you overdo your strength, it becomes your weakness. So how many people demand respect and freedom of speech? If I say something, but if you offend me, how dare you? You can't have that. So it should be a two-way street, but everybody wants freedom without paying the price, which is responsibility. There should be a balance. And that's what I call toxic authenticity.
Yes. Well, that was clear and succinct. Coming from America, freedom is a huge common theme that we hear a lot. And I think for me, seeing the news and things lately, we're seeing this mix, this imbalance of people wanting, like you said, to say what they want, do what they want. And now there's the other end of this messy kind of outcry of the cancel culture based on that as well. How do you think that fits into all of this?
I think when you do something really useful like political correctness, I think the idea is great. But when you overdo it, it prevents you from being able to talk about issues. And if you cannot ask a question, because what if the other person gets offended? What do? I'm going to assume something. And by nature, it's not going to be something positive. Assumptions are not positive. Usually they're negative. That's how we are wired. We assume the worst scenario. And then because I hang out with people like me, we are going to discuss it. They agree with me. So all those assumptions harden into facts and they become my universal truth, my common sense, because I share it with people around me. So ultimately, we are just widening this gap. And that doesn't help anyone. So it's very difficult to find a common ground. So my approach would be slightly different. First, if you tell me where you are from, I don't really care about it for the first time. And the reason is that if you just point out statistically average national differences, like most of the last century intercultural models do, then we are widening the gap. I want to connect with you on an individual level first, and then we can learn about the differences. We can learn about the background, not the other way around. Because if I expect you to be a typical or statistically average American, that's what I'm going to see. And even if you're not like that, I'm going to see what I expect to see, which is not ideal. Or if you are really different, then I'm going to think, if that's a normal American, but you're not like that, what's wrong with you? Excellent options. So I don't want that, because maybe we are very similar inside, but we were conditioned differently by our environment, by our experiences. So let's focus on that first.
I love that. I mean, I think this is the perfect example, right? So here I am, I'm the American, you're from Europe, so there are definitely those stereotypical differences. I'm supposed to be the loud, wild, extroverted American. And in a lot of ways, I can fit that stereotype.
So not like that.
And at the same time, it's very interesting having lived in Europe for so long. When I have one of my American friends come visit, I also see the gap from having kind of adapted to some of the social norms and culture here. And then I have a friend who's come to visit and they're yelling in the market. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's so crazy. So I think it's so easy to see the differences. And you mentioned, it's that a lot of the models out there are really showing us the differences in hopes that that helps us identify where we're coming from different places, but it actually just creates more of a divide. And so how do we approach that in a different way?
It depends on what you use it for. So that's why I wouldn't criticize any models, but I do criticize the people who lie about them, and they promise much more than the models can actually deliver. So I think the country-specific approach is really important if you move to a country, because you have to learn about what people are used to. That's important. But culture is not who we are, it's what we are used to. There's a big difference there. And the further away you are from the norms, the more consequences there are, whatever they might be. So we learn how to conform to the norms. Like you said, you move to Europe, you have to conform to the norms. But is that really true? Or maybe that's the right environment where you can be yourself. And you don't have to pretend to be more American, like in the US. That's another question. Because when you meet someone for the first time, you don't know if they behave like that because of who they are or because of the environment they have to conform to.
Right.
If that's a country, that's a company, that's a family, that's a hobby, I don't know. But in every single cultural group, or just let's call it group, so it's less confusing, there's a normal behavior style that most people conform to. Does it mean that they are like that? So even if you look at the definition of culture, often people use the version where they say that the members of a group share certain values and beliefs and all those things. Sounds amazing, it's just not true. Just because you conform to the norms, it doesn't mean that you share those values, but you do conform to the behavior. So that's the real question. How big is the mindset gap between what is natural to you and what is normal around you? That's what matters. How much do you have to pretend in order to be accepted, even in your country? Because if you look at the actual research, more than 80% of cultural differences exist within countries, not between them.
Oh, yeah.
Around 20% of the people are statistically average. For them, it's like fish in the water. The rest, not so much. And at least 20 or 30% of the people are the exact opposite.
That's
How does it feel?
Amazing. I mean, I love looking at it this way. And again, I mean, I look at my own country and go, okay, I'm from California. So that's another like identity. And there's a stereotype that goes along with just our state alone. And then you can look at within the stereotypes and things that happen from being from Southern California and Northern California, and how that's so different, the jokes we make about that, and that there's so many differences just within that space. And I love what you said about the conforming. Is that who they really are, or they're just conforming to the norm? So for me, something very common, at least in California, is we say hi to everyone. We walk in the morning, good morning, good morning. We say hi. If someone's walking their dog, we say good morning. We smile at everyone. Not necessarily exactly because that's who you are either, but that's the social norm. It kind of seems rude. And I remember being, younger and kind of like you see someone walking down the street, you're like, oh God, I gotta like smile or say hi or something. And that becomes a thing. And then take that out. So that's already its own situation. And then bring me over here in a Czech Republic where it's not quite the norm for everyone to be smiley and bubbly to each other. And I'm still in that. So now you may see me kind of a little more, I'm not waving to everyone and hi, good morning. But there is part of that, that's who I am, or is part of that just from my upbringing in California? Do I really actually want to talk to people? It just brings up so much self-examination.
So which one is more comfortable? Which environment? Smiling constantly, saying hi, or smiling when you want to smile and saying hi when you want to say hi?
It's like such a knee-jerk reaction, but I am smiley. For me, it is actually, I think, quite who I am. I am that person.
And this is interesting just to ask these questions because we never think about that. Often when you remove people from their environment and you take away their title, like their profession, they have no idea who they are. And that's really dangerous. If you look at a culture group, it's almost like a prepackaged mindset. If that's a political party, it's a hobby, a profession, a country, they tell you exactly what is right, what is wrong, who you have to love, who you have to hate. Does it mean that this is who we are? No, not necessarily.
Right.
So there was another research where they compared 17 different culture groups in terms of practicality and range of differences. The bottom three were country of origin, gender, and generation. You cannot predict anybody's values and beliefs based on those categories.
Yeah.
Interestingly, these are the culture groups that most companies focus on when they want to increase diversity. Fantastic, it just makes no sense. And why? Because it's not up to you. You didn't choose your country of origin, your gender, your generation. But even if you're completely different, you learn how to navigate efficiently. You learn how to be normal, how to behave normal. Does it mean that you are like that? No. But if you look at the other culture groups, like your profession, your chosen country, your educational level, your hobby, then probably you're going to choose the ones where your personal preferences match what is normal around you, because it feels more comfortable. You can use your strengths, your weaknesses are less exposed, and you understand people. It feels good.
Yeah.
So to me, that can be a much stronger clue in terms of your values and beliefs than your country of origin, gender, or generation, because they are not up to you.
That is amazing. It reminds me of my experience when I went to China to train. And so we lived in the Shaolin Temple, and there's all these people from all over the world. And there was no titles. No, we weren't networking. We were all there. No one was a Kung Fu master other than the Kung Fu master. And it was just kind of a sea of faces, and there was no titles. We were all wearing these gray Shaolin robes and training. And it was amazing, actually, after the friendships that I forged and people I learned, to then go and actually meet with these people in their element. And so to go further, and one was from England, and kind of to see who he is outside of that space, or where he, I guess, assimilates. Right. And the same thing, I went to Ecuador and, met one of my friends who I only know within the Kung Fu environment, where we all stripped of titles or anything. Just, I knew how, well he progressed in his Kung Fu. But then I went to his wedding, and I was able to kind of see the view of the friends and the prestige and titles and these kind of things. And it was just so mind blowing to have all of the stuff around. And I was realizing how different it was when we were just there in this empty space in a way. It feels like a completely different person, but it's not. It was just shedding away all that stuff, right? That lens, does that make sense? Like the lens that we see them through?
And I think that can be even scary, because a lot of people have no idea who they are. And that's why they don't want to spend time alone. That's why they have to be distracted. If that means TV or music or books or drinks or drugs or just keeping busy, at least I don't have to be with myself, because I have no idea. But when you're in that environment, Who am I without the packaging? It's a
Yeah.
really interesting question, and a lot of people don't know that. And here's the problem: if you don't know who you are, there's no self-awareness. Then you choose a prepackaged mindset. Maybe that's a political party. Maybe that's a football team that you have to cheer no matter what.
Right.
And if you attach too much significance to one label, and somebody attacks that label, you have to protect it at all costs because that's part of your identity. Pretty much, this is who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when people get nasty. But if that political party and football team are just a tiny piece of your mental map, your identity, that is much more stable. It's much more sustainable. And we can see that in real world now. People have no self-awareness. And when the crisis hits, like Obama said, people look for religion or guns. They need that kind of feeling of certainty. Even though it doesn't exist in nature, we crave it. We need it somehow. So where do you find it? National identity? That's what I know because everything else is falling apart. Maybe a political party. Maybe it's my hobby. I need something. If I don't know myself, then I need an authority figure who can tell me what to do, what is right, what is wrong. Somebody who can make sense of what's happening now because life cannot be random. There's no way. And even if I know I'm wrong, I got fooled, and maybe that's not the right thing to do. I'm so emotionally invested that I cannot change my mind because if I do, the world is even more uncertain. I can't have that.
Right.
That's dangerous.
What do we do then? What is our different approach? Because this is clearly common. It's clearly what we're, maybe I'm saying that, but I mean, is it not the common thread that most of us are not growing up to be self-aware, kind of guided towards looking and going, who am I? What am I without these titles? As you said, like, the bottom three, right? Was your country, culture, what was it?
Gender and generation.
Gender and generation, right? So those are the bottom three, but those are the things that, as you said, we absolutely think is the thing that defines us in one way or the other. That's who I am. So we're not guided to look and find out who we are. So how do we change this cycle?
Ultimately, people don't do anything until it hurts enough. And often, if you don't know that you have a problem, then you're not looking for a solution, or maybe you try to treat the symptom, not the root cause of the problem. So, for example, this week we are doing the Uncommon Mindset Bootcamp, the one that you attended, I think last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And here we talk about the two main reasons why most opportunities, time, and energy are lost. One is friction with people who think and behave differently, and the other one is friction with ourselves. And then we get into the 7 different areas. And for example, I asked the participants on day 1, we went through all the 7 areas. So tell me, where do you think you are losing most of the potential? Where do you have the biggest issues? And by far, the top 3, self-sabotage, self-inclusion, and capacity. So if you think about this, if that's the problem, me, I cannot accept myself. I sabotage myself. I react instead of responding. I know something is wrong, but I can't make it happen. How can I be inclusive towards others? How can I accept others? How can I work with them?
Yeah.
How can I appreciate them? And most of the courses focus on that. Painting everything rainbow colored and love people and be nice to them. Yes, that's all important. But the foundation is missing. And that's me. I don't know myself. I don't trust myself. I make a plan in the morning and I fail in the evening. Fantastic. How does it affect the people around me? Do you think I'm going to be nice? No, I'm going to be frustrated. But because I don't know about this, I try to control them. I try to control the external environment. And that backfires really quickly. That's dangerous. So that's why I published the book. That's why I do the courses, the webinars. So people realize that the mindset is with us 24/7, but we don't learn about it. You need a license for pretty much everything except for your mindset. That can be your greatest asset or liability. How do you fix and upgrade your phone if you don't know how it works?
Yeah. I've heard a lot of the, you need a license kind of metaphors, but I've never heard one about the mindset. And that is huge because like you said, it affects everything around us and others as well. Yeah, it's one of the most probably undervalued things that we look and deal with. It's not in that hierarchy of schooling. It's not in obviously a lot of this, what executives are looking for, unless it's that go-getter attitude, we'll call that a mindset, but isn't that just another conformity? God, okay. So I can talk about this all the time with you. I love this. These are the subjects I absolutely adore. That's why a topic like this is on my design life, because it comes down to so much more than just an organizational structure or how businesses can attract the best employees. It just skips completely over that and comes back to who we are. And that's what I just really adore about what you've created with Global Disc, because I see it very important and utilitarian within the executive world. But as you see, and anyone who checks out the reviews of your thing, if they see my review, I'm like, this is a human tool. This is a tool for humans. Like, if you're a human, you need this tool. Very similar to the Sadhguru book. If you're going to die, this is a book. Anyone who might die, this is a book for you. Anyone who's a human, this is a book for you, because this is about the way we exist and interact as humans. And if we, I think so many spaces that touch on these elements have become so fluffy and woo-woo and touchy-feely, as you mentioned before, which there's an element there that it's very valid, but we miss, I guess maybe doing the real work. We talk the theories there and this stuff's there, but it's like, what do you do? And I know within Global Disc and that, you really give some clear pieces to identify and look at to go, okay, so what do you do now? Right? That's like the big difference. So I love that. And then just kind of circling back around to this Authentoxicity idea. It's something, I know it's like way back, right? We just started with coming back to this idea. I think we've all experienced the toxic authenticity type of person. And especially now for me, working with entrepreneurs as I do, there's this huge push marketing wise to be yourself, show up as you want. And there was a huge shift. Maybe it started around 10 years ago, where the properness in business, and which is faux in a lot of its own ways, started to fall off, and everyone was like, let's have fun with dropping F-bombs, and the Gary Vaynerchuks and things of the world were like, let's shock them, and I'm just gonna be myself. Yep. And there's part of that was refreshing. There's also a part now where it's so annoying. You just see it. And it's like people are just peppering in kind of this language for no other reason than being authentic. And I don't necessarily see it as a benefit. So where can you maybe lend some insight into this kind of, I don't know if we call it problem or current culture of this idea that that's just me and that's just who I am and you need to accept it?
I think that begs another question. If they are really authentic and that's why they have potty mouth, or they're just conforming to the new norms because that seems to be trendy.
That's what it all comes back to, right? It all comes back to this figuring out, is that really who you are? And okay, so if we've identified like Vaynerchuk, let's just use him as an example. If you guys aren't familiar, Gary Vaynerchuk, very well known in this kind of entrepreneur industry, and he likes to drop lots of F-bombs. And it seems very much, at least on the surface, that is who he is. That's how he speaks. That's how he does. So then we have somebody who's conforming and just kind of showing up because it's trendy and maybe that'll work for them. And then we have the people who are very much, that's who they are. They maybe have that kind of mouth or whatnot. And the expectation is that we're all supposed to be okay with that because that is who they are. So where does that line cross where they are being authentic, that is who they are, and then crossing to the other side, which is like, well, that's offensive to me, so you don't get to do that. Like, where do we find ourselves there?
I think you can see authenticity in terms of consistency. And if you look at Gary Vee, then, I think even in the book, I said that he's the angriest looking optimist. You watch him, he's got so much content. It's consistent. This is who he is. So when you meet someone, immediately you don't know if that's who they are or they are not, or they're just pretending. But over an extended period of time, you will see it. Mm-hmm. So for example, you read the book, you attended the course, and we have chats. You can see that it's pretty much the same person. That's not something you can fake.
Yeah.
And to me, that's important. But we also have to acknowledge if something is wrong. So, in the name of being authentic, I cannot just run around naked because this is who I am. We still have standards. So it's not like we can ignore it. And we have to understand it. So if you look at personal development, there are two ways of approaching it. There is one where you think that, oh, I'm not enough. I need so much more. I'm not enough. On the other side, you have the exact opposite. I'm perfect. And I just have to remove the unnecessary layers. And, they are nice, but I think it's more about the combination. And toxic authenticity is about being perfect and not realizing there are a lot of layers to be removed because this is who I am. And I think that is difficult. And people are not going to change anything until somebody pushes back. So, it's my freedom of speech, yes. But then once you realize that this is who I am and I'm rigid, and that's why I think it's a glorified fixed mindset, that ultimately you're not going to get the results you're hoping for. So your environment is conditioning you. This is who you are. Bam, a big slap. Another one, really. And quickly you learn, okay, I have to conform something or have to have standards at least. And ultimately you make the decision for yourself. Do you want to pretend to be a really authentic person and then you don't get what you want? Or you realize that maybe there is a balance and you also have to respect other people. So when we look at the Uncommon Mindset Bootcamp, we talk about 4 steps. One is mindset. That's where we start because most people have no idea about that. That's what we discussed. Step 2, the uncommon sense. So we learned about other people's logic, which is really important. So I look at cultural differences as clashes of common senses. So if you approach the topic this way, then you can remove this illusion of superiority, that I'm right, you're wrong, and I have to prove it. No, we can have a disagreement. And I know that you think you are right. So tell me, what do you know that I don't? What can you see that I cannot? If you are able to do this, it's going to be fine. Then we can see the same situation from different perspectives, so we can make better decisions. And that's the definition of uncommon mindset, which is much more important to me than Global Disc. Global Disc is a tool. It's a technology behind it to make it happen. But if you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter what kind of tools you have. So that is step 2. Step 3, if you get that right, you can get along with yourself and others. And we have to mention that because most people are struggling there, how to get along with yourself. And that's exactly the trend that we saw last year. People had to spend way too much alone at home. And they turned out, I don't like that person. I don't know. So there's an issue. And if you cannot get along with yourself, you're going to struggle with other people as well. But if you get that right, then you can get ahead. And there's no shortcut. These are the 4 steps, but there's no shortcut there. If you think about successful and charismatic people, they are not necessarily the smartest ones, but the ones who have the best people skills, the ones who make you feel important and you just want to be around them because they're interested in you. And they are confident enough to say, you know what, you're right. Yeah, let's do that. When was the last time you heard when somebody said, yeah, actually, you're right. We should do that. Not often.
No, everything that you're saying, I'm just like absorbing it in. It's so powerful. And even just a couple steps back when you said the idea of, when somebody says something disagrees with you, and as you mentioned, even further back, we have this association, this identity. So our initial reaction is to defend it, or even the fact that we're reacting, and then we want to defend it to defend this identity, as opposed to saying, okay, maybe something I don't, let me hear that. And actually just honestly being willing to hear that, because it's a matter of understanding and connection, not about defending who you are. And it's those people who can step into that, who are going to see the level of success. And one of the things I always see that's so huge in some of these top leaders and thought leaders and things that their books are written about is you'll learn about their drive and maybe motivation and different things like that, sense of purpose. But one thing that's common is that there's always some place of, for lack of a better term, self-awareness and self-development that comes into them looking at who they were and pursuing some sort of process, not just people skills on some surface term, but really understanding and caring about that. And, even if you look at it from a real basic, like they all have morning routines or they all have this, like there's always something beyond just, yeah, they were innovative or they thought outside of the box, or like you said, you know, they're not necessarily the smartest, but they knew how to get people on board, excite people about their vision. And that takes more than cheerleading. It takes the ability to truly connect.
I think you just said the right word, that the vision, because motivation comes from clarity. And most people can complain about the past, something they don't like. But do you have a vision? Can you describe the future as vividly as I can describe my memories in the past? If you can do that and you stand for something instead of standing against, like a lot of politicians, a lot of companies, then there's something to get behind. And that's when people follow you. Do you have that vision?
Yeah.
And not many people have that, not in personal life, not in professional life. They know what is wrong, what they cannot stand, why other people are stupid and they have no common sense. But then what do you do instead? Do you have a better solution? That's my question.
Yes. Okay, so I have to share this story real quick. It's when I was a kid, and I've shared this a couple of times, but when I was a teenager and knew everything, because that's what, you know, teenagers know everything, and I clearly did. A couple of friends of mine, we were standing around and talking about a lady that we saw in a supermarket, and she had, I don't know, smacked her kid on the butt or something like that. And us being 13, and we were like, oh my gosh, I would never do that. That lady was so ridiculous. And just being teenagers. And an adult who was nearby came by and was like, it's really great that you've identified the thing that you're not going to do, but what are you going to do instead? Because if you don't decide that now or figure that out now, when the time comes, you're only going to do what you know. And that stuck with me many, many years later here, that always to look at, and it really comes like that vision. It's a very simplified elementary version of that, but it always stuck with me to go, it's, what are you going to do instead? You can say it, like you said, I don't like that. I don't sound, this person's an idiot. Okay, so then what are you going to do about it? What is the other vision? What is the way to have it be different if you don't have that idea of what you're going to do instead? And so if we're unhappy, if we don't like that we're not getting along with people, or that, you know, Gina is always so annoying, if that's what you think, what are you going to, what is the vision to change that? You can continue to stay and go, well, Gina's just annoying. And how does that help anyone or anything?
I think because it gives people the kind of sense of significance, because it means that you're judging them. So you're above them.
Right.
But it's easy to judge people, but you have no idea what you would do in that situation. So if you look at the Johari window, the unknown area, you can guess, but you have no idea how you would react unless you have a rule or unless you already experienced it. Yeah. So judgment is fantastic, but it's almost like when you forgive someone, then it means that I'm above somebody instead of letting it go. It's very different dynamics.
Yeah.
You cannot create equality by being more equal than somebody else.
I was going to say, I remember hearing a statement that was that it's not about forgiving the person. It's about becoming the person who doesn't, who wasn't like offended, essentially, like not even taking that on. Like it doesn't, I don't need to forgive somebody. I need to become the person who doesn't have an offense to be forgiven, type of thing. Like, I don't know, I'm not saying it right, but it was really interesting. I was like, it's because again, you're like, they've done this against me. And it's really just you taking on that situation and whatever that is. So for you to go, that's not about me. And like, it just releases this, that hierarchy of, I'm going to forgive them because I'm going to be the bigger person, right? That is something we hear a lot too. And it's really about you to go, why was it even an issue?
Because it's up to you. I can be offensive. I can say really bad things to you, but it's your decision if you want to get offended or not.
Right.
That's up to you. My behavior is up to me.
And that's the consequence. Circling this back around to the authentoxicity, Csaba, you could be super rude right now and say some crazy stuff. And I'd be like, oh my gosh. And the consequence may be, I'm not talking to Csaba anymore. He went nuts. And you get to be authentic. And you can keep that and go, that was fine, because that's how I felt. And I think she's ridiculous or whatever. But the consequence is that broken connection that you and I have, right? Yeah. Or you know, and so, or you can look at that and go, wow, I don't actually like that consequence. maybe there's something I need to identify about who or how I stand and who I am.
So you would cancel me, huh? Look at that. How just reinforcing the cancel culture.
Canceling Csaba. I'm putting out the post right now. That's it.
Just get rid of me. But you see,
Csaba,
that
you're
explains
you're
that
stuck
it's
around
natural.
here. You can't get away from here.
But this is a natural reaction. I don't like something, then I walk away. And in a way, that is normal. Because that's my behavior. But you don't have to tolerate it.
Right.
We get what we tolerate. If you turn a blind eye to something, then it's a confirmation that you agreed to it.
Right. Yeah, because there's the other side. I didn't talk about my side of it because I could have been like, it's fine. That's just how Csaba is. And then every now and then I'm going to get that, windfall of Csaba. You guys, by the way, Csaba's so mean. Okay. Csaba's wonderful.
Monster.
But then like you said, then that's my part of it. That's my part in being like, well, then it's fine. It's okay. That's just how Csaba is. And if I'm truly okay with that, and I'm like, hey, he's just joking, it's fine, then we continue where we are. So it's just so interesting. It's so simple in so many ways.
But it's emotional, and that's the problem. Because when we talk about cancel culture, often we talk about people who are overreacting. So is it because I hurt your ego, your pride, or was it really serious? Right. It's not the same thing. So I'm not talking about toxic positivity or being really pessimistic. It's about accurate thinking.
Right.
And I think that's the difficult part, because when you have this extreme emotional trigger that something is really bad and you get pissed off, then this is exactly what we should use as an anchor, as a reminder, just to double check that don't react, because chances are that we misunderstood something. Right. And that should be the reminder. That's exactly what we have to preach, practice what we preach about. What was the reason why something triggered you that much? What was the reason?
Yeah, right.
Is it because I pointed out something you didn't like? Does it mean that I'm a bad person?
Right.
If my intention was bad and I was disrespectful, that's a different story. Cancel me.
Yeah.
But if I say something that you might not like, but then later you realize, actually, that's serving me. And this is what you use in coaching as well. Mm-hmm. That now we are getting to the point where you do a workshop or coaching and the trainers are evaluated based on how entertaining they are and not how valuable they are. And if you want to add real value, you have to be fearless sometimes. And you have to say something that they might not like, but ultimately you do it for them. But are you willing to risk it? Do you want to please people or you want to serve them?
Yes.
And it's difficult to find a balance.
Oh God, I love this. I love all of this. I think everyone needs to just watch all of these points over and over because there's so much gold in here. I mean, these are powerful questions to ask ourselves. These are powerful things for us to grasp and hold on to. And as I've said so many times, for those of us who are watching this and we're entrepreneurs and we're looking at how to move forward and how to succeed, these are pieces that we need to ask ourselves and look at how we are dealing with people and our connections, but then take it out of this. This is our home life. These are our connections with our friends, family, the family we're enthralled with, the family that we may be frustrated with. These are the pieces that can bring, I want to say, ease and clarification. I didn't say easy, but perhaps ease, an easier way to see it, to look at it, to keep your own emotions from that roller coaster, because you're not reacting. You're not like, oh, that was about me, or I can't believe this. You can stop for a moment and actually maybe feel a level of peace, because you can see kind of things for what they are, and you can handle your own self and your own emotions. Does that seem correct?
Yes, because I think here the biggest danger is the binary thinking. And this is what we kind of describe, that if I'm right, you must be wrong and I have to prove it. Somebody has to lose. And that's why I think the language is really important. That it's not about your decision or mine, but is there an even better way of doing things? That would be my question.
Yeah.
Do you want to be right or you want to get it right? There's a big difference there. But if your ego is fragile and you don't have self-awareness, you have to protect that and you have to be right. Your ego wants to be seen good. They don't want to do good. That's a different story. For that, you have to be really, really stable and confident. But is there an even better way of doing things, especially entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
Do you want to be right all the time, or you want the results? Which one is more important? But often this is something we don't think about because we don't want to lose face. But again, what do you mean by losing face? Because that narrative is in your head. Whatever emotion you have, that happened because of a narrative, a thought, a meaning that you attach to that event, and a picture you created in your head. These are the two things.
Yeah.
And you're in charge of both.
Yes. Oh my
If
gosh.
I'm wrong, do I punish myself because I'm ashamed that I'm a loser and then I feel bad, but then I have to protect it? Or I think, you know what? We are making progress. We are learning. We are growing. So an experience can be positive, even if it's not pleasant.
Yeah.
But if you just listen to your brain, then painful or away, and we just run away. We can't have it. And this is what we have to reframe. It can be painful and positive.
Yes.
But that's not natural.
Painful plus positive. Is that gonna, that's your next, after this current book you're working on, then that's the next one. Okay. Painful and positive. I love
Positive and
that.
painful.
It's powerful. I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, I'm just blown away. I'm not surprised, but I'm always blown away. And just hearing how clearly and succinctly that you can take these concepts and bring them forward. It reminded me of a couple things I had to throw out there. Was one is again, going back to being young and trying to save face. I remember so many times that I missed out on opportunities to learn because someone would mention something. Have you heard of this? Or do you know how to do this? And I didn't want to lose face. So yeah. Oh yeah, I know that. And they're like, oh, great. So, and then they would go to the next step and I missed out on the foundation, or I missed out on hearing about a cool band because I wanted to act like I knew who they were. And it was so ridiculous. And like you said, it was my own narrative in my head of who I was supposed to be, not that the person expected me to be. That's why they asked the question, did you know? Do you know about this? And I had an opportunity to actually potentially learn, because I could have said no. And they would have said, oh, well, let me tell you about it. How great. But I passed that up for these ridiculous, this ego face nonsense. And it's so silly that we continue to do that as we age and as we get older. It doesn't change because our mindset hasn't changed. Our view and self-awareness hasn't changed. And the other thing it reminded me of is Tom Bilyeu. He talks about this a lot, where in building his, billion-dollar empire, that he wanted to be right, even to, despite knowing that it wasn't even something he actually cared about sometimes, but he had to be right. And things didn't really shift into his success until he made a decision. I want to be, and I know people say, I want to be the dumbest person in the room, but he shifted to say, I want to be the person who learns the most. I want to be the one who's going to always learn something in this, whatever I learn. And that, Tom Bilyeu, love him, hate him. I just thought it was so brilliant of a mind shift and to move into that, because I think in a lot of ways, that's what you're saying, is that in every situation, how do I look at this and learn? What, why do I feel I need to be right? What could they be saying that I don't know? It's this inquisitive curiosity that can carry us a lot further and a lot happier in life.
It's very logical, but it's difficult to understand it until we experience it.
Yeah.
For example, I had a client. He was a senior leader in a big tech company, and he was very scared of making a mistake. And that was a shame, and that's exactly how he felt all the time. I said, so there's no point in talking about feelings. So let's try a different angle. So imagine that you have to employ somebody. That person has a master's degree in the relevant field and 15 years of experience. And the other one has 2 master's degrees and 2 years experience. Which one would you employ? The first one, the one with the experience. Okay, and which one made more mistakes? What do you think? Well, the first one. So you would choose the one who made more mistakes. Why is that? And he never thought about it that way. And then you have to realize that mistakes, that's how we learn, because we predict the future. It doesn't happen like that. And then the emotion goes up, you pay attention, and that's how you learn. Nothing happens on autopilot. But that's how I understood it. So I had to speak the language of logic. There was no point in, oh, don't worry about it. People don't think about you like that.
Right.
No, you connect with them using the right language, building on what they know.
Yes.
So this is the uncommon mindset. You present the same situation from different perspectives. Not because we are smarter, it's because you need an outsider. Staying in our head, it's messy. It's difficult. Even the most successful people have coaches as well, because we need that perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, I do business coaching and strategy, and there's a reason why I have that coach, because I can't see beyond my own nose sometimes. No matter how much I know these things or can guide other people, for somebody else to come in and go, hey, you see that? You see this right here? plain view and plain sight. So that's, gosh, this is so amazing, Csaba. Thank you so much for showing up and having this conversation and sharing this information. And before my last question, would you mind telling everyone where they can find you, what they have going on, how they can learn more about this and really like start to walk in these great tips?
I'm happy to connect with everyone on LinkedIn who's interested in this topic. And if they want to learn more, then I would suggest the Uncommon Sense in Unusual Times, which is a hybrid book. So technically, it's not a book and an online course, but it comes with £500 worth of resources, because people learn from experience, not from information. So, for example, you can read a chapter, and then there's an app. You can complete a mission, and you can experience it. So this is a journey that includes the global disc assessment, an interactive coaching platform, a certificate at the end, and then you can also join our Facebook group, because it is a journey. It doesn't matter how good somebody is or something. If you don't follow it up, nothing happens. So I just want to facilitate that journey. And that is pretty much an investment in the future, the hope that people read it and they become more curious. And even if somebody disagrees with me, then do your own research. Then my job is done. Fantastic. At least you're thinking, you're looking for the right thing. But if you want to hang out with cool people who are committed to growing, let's do it.
Yes.
That's the point.
Oh, I love it. You guys definitely, please go check out Csaba. He's on LinkedIn. He has the ICQ of, family there is at, I think on IG, you're at ICQ.global. Is that correct?
Yes.
And also on Facebook, ICQ Global. You can look up Csaba Toth on LinkedIn as well as ICQ, and you will see it is quite an amazing mix of humans and just a whole different level of support. It's been such an honor to actually be part of this group and watching them grow and just honestly connecting with incredible humans. So you guys make sure to do that. Make sure to go follow up, find this. And like Csaba said, it doesn't matter how much you've listened to us today, because it's not until you can step into these places, until you can experience it and actually have things that push you towards the action, where this will become actually part of your mindset. Right now, it's just an idea and a thought. Right? So get that book, get that quest, do those things. And as always, you can connect with us at My Design Live Show and at Tanya MFK on Facebook and Instagram, and learn more about our courses, workshops, group, and coaching to grow your business and create a life that you love at TanyaMFK.com. And if you like this episode, then make sure to subscribe and follow and be notified when our next one is up by clicking that button now. And remember, your someday starts today. Make it the best. I'm Tanya MFK, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining us. My Design Live is a Tanya MFK production. You can catch us every week at 1 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. London on the Tanya MFK YouTube channel. Do you have a method, tip, or hack you'd like to share or explore? Suggest a topic or submit to be a guest by visiting our website at TanyaMFK.com.